The goal of this video is to give you a clear idea of what a case interview sounds like. In this case, you'll be able to see exactly what an interview candidate would say and write on their paper during a consulting interview. This video comes from the Hacking the Case Interview online course, which teaches you how to solve case interviews in the most efficient way possible. Let's get started.
Hi there. Thanks so much for taking the time to come in. Let's jump right into this case interview if you're ready.
No problem. I'm ready whenever you are.
Our client is Microtechnos, a consumer electronics retailer that sells laptops, smartphones, and electronic accessories in the U.S. The CEO of the company has hired us because they have been losing money over the past year. He wants to know why Microtechnos is losing money and what they should do about it.
Great. To clarify, when you say that Microtechnos is losing money, do you mean that profits have gone down, or do you mean profitability has gone down?
Profits have gone down. Thanks for catching that.
One other follow-up question. Is Microtechnos a national electronics retailer, or are they a smaller regional chain?
Microtechnos is a national electronic retailer with stores all across the U.S.
Thanks. To summarize, our client is Microtechnos, a consumer electronics retailer that has experienced declining profits over the past year. The objectives of this case are to 1. Determine why Microtechnos is losing money, and 2. Determine what Microtechnos should do to improve profits. Is my understanding correct?
Yes, it is.
Would you mind if I took a moment to structure my thoughts and develop a framework that we can talk through to tackle the objectives?
Sure, that sounds great.
Thanks. I am just about wrapping up my thoughts.
Take your time.
In order to approach this problem, I would like to look into 4 areas. First, I'd look at profit and break it down into revenues and costs. I would like to look into how revenues and costs have changed over the past few years. Depending on which is most responsible for the decline in profits, I would like to further break down revenue into quantity and price, and further break down costs into fixed costs and variable costs to identify the specific drivers causing the decline in profits. Second, I'd like to look at customer needs and preferences. Have customer preferences changed during this time period? Do customers perceive or view our company differently than before? Third, I'd like to look into the competitive landscape of the consumer electronics retailer space. Have new competitors entered the market? Are competitors doing something different than what they were previously doing? Fourth, I'd like to look into the consumer electronics retail market itself. Have profits gone down for consumer electronics retailers overall? Are there new government regulations affecting the selling of electronics? Are there new technologies or practices that are disrupting the consumer electronics retail market?
That sounds good. Where would you like to start?
I'd like to start with the first area, profit. I want to identify exactly why profits have gone down. After that, we can look into qualitatively why this is happening, and think through strategies and actions to address the decline in profits.
That makes sense. Let's proceed.
Let's start with costs. Perhaps costs have gone up, which would cut into profits. Do we have any information on costs?
We don't have much information on costs, but we believe costs have not changed much over time.
Okay, since costs have stayed roughly the same and profits have declined, that means revenue must have decreased. Do we have any information on how quantity of electronic products sold has changed, or if we have changed our prices?
We have not changed price, but we have seen a decline in quantity sold.
I know that we sell 3 major products: laptops, smartphones, and electronic accessories. Is there a particular product that has declined significantly in quantity sold?
We see the steepest decline in laptops.
Interesting. We have identified the driver behind the decline in profits. We are selling fewer laptops. The next step here is to look into why, qualitatively, are we selling fewer quantities of laptops. I think it would make sense to move on to the second area of my framework, customer needs and preferences. Do we have any information on how customer preferences have changed over time, or if they view our company differently than before?
We conduct a consumer electronics purchasing survey every year to understand customer trends. What insights can you draw from this survey question?
Looking at this chart, I need to calculate the percentage of respondents that are looking to purchase each device, since the survey totals for the 2 years aren't the same. Doing this, we see that customer preferences for laptops have gone down from 60% to 40%. Preferences for tablets have gone up from 20% to 40%. Preferences for desktops have stayed about the same, and preferences for the other category has also stayed about the same. Therefore, I think that the decrease in sales of laptops is caused by a shift in customer preference towards using tablets.
I agree with that interpretation. Let's say that management is interested in selling tablets to take advantage of this customer trend. The first step in evaluating this is to determine the market size of tablets. How would you go about calculating this?
Before I start, I want to confirm that we are calculating the market size for the US.
That's correct. We want to know the U.S. tablet market size.
Would you mind if I took a minute to develop a structure for calculating this?
Of course, go ahead.
In order to calculate the market size of tablets, I will first start with the US population. I will then segment the population by age group because different age groups have different levels of preference for purchasing tablets. Next, I will estimate the percentage of people in each age group that would use a tablet. Once I've done this, I will estimate the frequency in which they purchase a tablet. This will give me the number of tablets purchased per year, and I will then multiply the number of tablets purchased per year with the average tablet price to get the market size. How does this sound?
That sounds like a good approach. Let's proceed.
Great. I will start off with the US population of 320 million. I will then divide the population into 4 different age groups: 0 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, and 60 to 80 years old. This means that each age group has 80 million people.
What underlying assumptions are you making here?
This assumes that human life expectancy is 80 years, and I have assumed that there is an even distribution of ages across the population. Does that seem reasonable to you?
Yes, that seems reasonable. I just wanted to make sure I caught all of your implicit assumptions.
Looking at the 0 to 20 age group, I will assume about 25% would use tablets, since tablets are fairly popular with kids and young adults. But babies are too young to be using any electronics. This gives us 20 million tablet users in this segment. For the 20 to 40 age group, I think the percentage that use tablets will be higher since tablets are also used in professional settings in addition to home use. Let's assume 50% use tablets. This gives us 40 million tablet users in this segment. For the 40 to 60 age group, I would imagine that the percentage of people that use tablets is lower. Older folks are typically less invested and not up to date with the latest technology trends. Let's assume 25% would use a tablet. This gives us another 20 million tablet users. Finally, for the 60 to 80 age group, I would imagine very few people use tablets since they aren't as familiar with them. They may also have vision issues, preventing them from looking at smaller electronic screens. Let's assume 12.5% here, and this would give us 10 million tablet users in this segment. Adding all of these up, we get about 90 million tablet users.
Does this number seem reasonable to you?
The US population is 320 million. I calculated that 90 million people would use a tablet, which means roughly a little more than 25% of the population has a tablet. This number seems reasonable to me. What do you think?
I agree that the number you calculated seems reasonable.
Great. Next, I need to estimate the frequency at which these 90 million people purchase tablets. Based on my personal experiences owning a tablet, people purchase a tablet every 3 years. Multiplying 90 million tablet users with 1/3 gives us 30 million tablet purchases per year.
Great. Let's assume the average tablet is priced at $400.
Great. So 30 million tablet purchases times $400 gives us a market size of $12 billion. In order to determine if this is a large market size, I'd like to compare it to the laptop market size. Do we have that information?
Let's say that the laptop market size is $30 billion. dollars.
Wow, that means that the tablet market is quite sizable compared to the laptop market, about 40% of its size. My preliminary conclusion is that we should enter the tablet market since we may be able to increase sales substantially since tablets are 40% the size of the laptop market. To further validate this, I'd like to compare the average profit margin for tablets with that of laptops. Do we have that information?
Let's say that the profit margins for laptops is 20% and the profit margins for tablets are 30%.
This supports my hypothesis that the tablet market is attractive. Tablet margins are 50% higher than laptops. Therefore, I think that the tablet market would be an attractive market to enter.
I agree with your assessment. What if I showed you the following exhibit that shows the market shares for the top 4 tablet retailers? What conclusions can you draw?
The market leader has 10% market share, and the other top players have about 5% market share each, with the majority of the remaining market share split among presumably many other players. This implies that the market is fairly fragmented, and that means there are low barriers to entry.
What are some examples of barriers to entry that you can think of?
We can think of barriers to entry as both economic barriers to entry and non-economic barriers to entry. Examples of economic barriers to entry would be the capital required to purchase tablets and economies of scale to have a lower tablet purchasing price. Examples of non-economic barriers to entry include brand name as a tablet retailer, knowledge or expertise to sell tablets to consumers, and store differentiation from the other tablet retailers in the market.
Let's say the CEO walks in and wants a summary and preliminary recommendation. What do you say?
Microtechnos has been experiencing a decline in profits because the quantity of laptops sold has decreased. This is caused by a change in customer preference towards purchasing tablets. To address this, I recommend that we enter into the tablet market for the following 3 reasons. 1. Customer purchasing preferences are shifting from laptops to tablets. Our recent survey found that the preference for purchasing laptops has declined from 60% to 40% in the past year, while preferences for purchasing tablets has increased from 20% to 40%. 2. The tablet market is more attractive than the laptop market. Although the tablet market is only $12 billion, 40% of the size of the laptop market, the average tablet profit margin are 50% higher than that of the laptop market, 30% compared to 20%. 3. The market is fairly fragmented, with the top player only having 10% of the market share. This implies that there are low barriers to entry for Microtechnos to enter the market. For next steps, I'd like to look into 2 things. 1. I'd like to look at Microtechnos' capabilities to determine if we are capable of selling tablets. This would include looking into tablet distributor relationships and the technical selling knowledge expertise of our staff. 2. I'd like to do a revenue and cost analysis to confirm we would be profitable entering the tablet retail market.
Great. Thanks for the recommendation. This concludes the case interview.